The summer of temptation is well underway in the Big Brother house, and we have a lot of ground to cover, so stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Ah, that music is so good.
Guys, one day we'll watch my theme. My intro is so embarrassing.
Was it?
What are you like
around?
Yeah. Like,
Blow a kiss.
I feel like that would be mine too, though.
Yeah.
you would
I
blow
would
a kiss?
blow a kiss too.
Really?
I blow kisses on my Insta story. And my
There you go.
fiance is always like, "Why do you always blow a kiss?" I said, "Because that's the only action I know."
They had me do some absurd things, so I'm just happy that they went with the kiss instead of.
Well, that's better than nothing. You guys,
The
welcome.
worst, though, had to be Megan and those claws. What was that
Oh,
about?
yeah, that was really the...
I mean, the girl that
Terrible.
walks off the stage with the claws. Come on.
That's horrible. You guys, welcome to the first official BB19 after show. We are so excited to finally be here, and we want to thank the fans first and foremost, because you guys are the ones that have been making sure that nobody forgot about us. So yes, thank you for the applause. I take all the credit. I am Bryce McLeay. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Bryce Advice, and I'm joined by my two awesome co-hosts. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Well, I'll go first.
Yes, please. Ladies first.
Oh, thanks, guys. I'm one with the boys tonight. But I am Morgan Willett. You can find me on Twitter at Morgan_Willett. If you want to get fancy and follow me on Instagram, it's at Morgan Lee Willett.
And I'm
Hey,
Drexel.
Morgan, can you fix your mic and talk more directly into it?
I'm Drexel. Sorry, there's a lot of things going on here. I'm Drexel Heard. You guys can follow me at Drexel Heard. You guys might know me from AfterBuzz TV's political culture. And so this is the first time I am not on a political show.
Welcome.
Although
Yeah,
I will
welcome.
say that this is a very political show. Big Brother is a
Yes.
super political, chess-moving show.
Oh my
so I think
gosh.
it's perfect for me on the show. So if you're in the chat room, hello. I am glad to be here. So if we can get that chat up on the
Yes.
screen, that'd be great too.
Yeah, and if for you guys who don't know or just joining us, Morgan actually was the winner of Big Brother Over the Top, which is an iteration on the
Woo!
digital platform CBS All Access. Yes.
Yay!
So we are so excited to have her. She has insight that nobody else will. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be in that house. So.
Morgan and I had a whole conversation right before the top of the show. I was like, what was the audition like?
Oh,
What
we
are the
went through
producers
all the
like?
dirty deeds.
What did you have to do? Is everybody crazy? How's
All right, well,
Julie?
Everyone is
we're going to
crazy.
talk about all of that, but first of all, we need to start talking about this show because we have 4 episodes to cover. The first of which was last week's eviction. We haven't talked about that yet, when Cody got evicted. So I feel like there's a resounding unanimous vote here that we're all thinking.
Right.
Drexel.
I have very strong opinions. So, okay, so full disclosure for all the fans, because I don't want people to get crazy, because I know what it's like. I know everybody who's probably watching right now are huge Big Brother fans. So this is my first season watching Big Brother. I'm coming in with fresh eyes on everybody. I'm a huge Survivor fan, so like I'm coming in with fresh eyes on all of these different contestants. And immediately, Cody was. I was like, "Who is this guy?" Now, my dad's a former Marine, so I should have taken a liking to Cody and just kind of his style. But he was just so arrogant that I was like, "Well, this guy's got to go." I don't care what he's got to do, but somehow they've got to get him out. It didn't matter when, but he had to go at some point.
But with him, regardless of how he came off, didn't you kind of want him to stay for the sheer entertainment?
No.
What?
Looking straight into the camera, being like,
But
it was not entertaining.
Cody looks and acts like a serial killer.
Yes.
but
Right.
Serial killers usually have personalities, so.
Right. But like, why didn't we see that in the confessional? Like, why couldn't we see the other? Like, yeah, play your game in the house.
Yeah.
But at least from the audience perspective, so that we could.
Because that is his game. I don't think.
Right.
I think he's so transparent that he can't even see like 2 feet in front of him.
that he feels like he has to. If he turns it off, then it might.
Yeah.
Get
But
bad
He has
for him.
no strategy at all.
Right.
But okay, did
Which is
y'all
different
you
from
see
mine.
the after interview with Julie?
Yeah.
Was a completely different human being.
That is true.
That-
I will say, but that might be Julie Chen. I mean, she's
Right,
a
the magic of
professional,
Julie.
so
I
I'm
don't
not
know,
really sure.
but I was impressed with his interview. It almost made me like him more. I was just like, you got to see a little bit more insight into his brain rather
Yeah.
than. I mean, he can't just stare at Julie Chen, I guess.
Well, no. I mean,
He
but
can't just brush his teeth.
So then, as while we're talking about Julie, she told him and told us about the battle back, which is going to be happening, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Hey, ready to chime in, guys. I was doing the chat for you, so I could really comment. No, I was for Cody. Yes, absolutely. Not even my cup of tea as far as a person.
Right.
And amongst the people I watch this with, they are not on my team, so I know I'm in the unpopular opinion. But baby, I gotta say how I feel. And I was all for Cody. I think he made so much sense when he noticed very early on how Paul had like the like a starstruck situation, and he's the only other strong person. He had to go not necessarily 1 week, but he had to put the guy that got voted out day 1, and then he had to go through 3 different layers of nominations. Like, he knew that what he did was a smart move, and when you give Paul a 3 episode pass, come on. I don't know. I was for Cody. I didn't think he was a jerk one bit. I think he was edited as such. But I know he's also a stern, weird guy, too. I will say that much.
People on Twitter were like, get him out of the house. He has mental issues. And we were like, I don't.
Guys, you have to pass a psych test. I promise he's not crazy unless he lied on his psych test. But, I mean,
I don't think that's likely. It doesn't seem like he can lie.
Right, exactly. He just stares at you blankly. But I will say, like, I've tried to keep up with the live feeds, and Cody, some people, he did do some questionable things. So I will say I don't necessarily enjoy him as a person. As a player, he had that's rough to nominate a third of the house. So I feel for him on that part.
But I also think to Bryce's point, and I'm sure that when you watch games like Big Brother, you watch games like Survivor, strategy is a huge component of the way of what fans of shows like that want to see.
Absolutely.
Cody went in with 0 strategy, or at least it seemed like he went in with 0 strategy, no social game. He kind of went in guns blazing, thinking that he could make big moves from day 1. Like, that's amateurish stuff. For people, and I'm sure he's watched the show before because it seemed like he did. Yeah. And so for him to make poor moves like that early on, that's why I was like, well, if you're going to make stupid moves like that, then you got to go. If he was making smart moves and he was still a jerk, I probably would have given him a pass.
Yeah, but
there you go.
Don't you appreciate him at least playing the game? The other side of that coin is that nobody plays the game. Nobody speaks their opinion. Right. No one takes a shot. Yeah, you have to respect that, guys.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I think that I will say that he and Paul, and that's kind of why I would like to see him back in the house, only because I don't know, it's either like good TV or like my own sanity to watch him, but I feel like him and Paul kind of going at it was a really interesting dynamic,
It made me want to watch more. And I will say with Cody, he might have made some stupid moves. I think his biggest downfall, he didn't let people inside of his head. Like, I think part of his strategy was just staring at people. But he was one of the only ones who went after the vet. Like, why?
And I think a thing that happened with him, this is my last thing on Cody, because, again, I'm amongst the people I watch it with, they're like, how could you like him? It doesn't match to my personality, but I did like the way he played. But I think one of the hard things he went through is he picked his small little group of people to be aligned with. But what happened was when all of those men ended up having the girls that they hung out with, he got a bigger alliance. And it's too hard to make your own maneuvers when you have an alliance that got bigger just by the sake that Raven got in the mix and Elena got in the mix. I don't think that was his original plan. And I think that's why he closed his mouth when he made his power move, because we all know, you guys, especially in entertainment, you comment to somebody about what you're going to do, you are good as gone, not going to have that opportunity anymore. Let's be real about that.
Yeah, I do agree with that, because when he did reach out to those guys, you weren't expecting, and then they're going to all have their girls that they're going to protect. So it does become a thing. That's kind of, this is a little later, but now it's like, actually, we'll talk about it later. I just want to, I think Cody made the right move then later when he started spreading false accusations and collusion throughout the house, and that was like his one big game move after he was like kind of going out of the house. What did you guys think about that?
I agree. Good for him. I think he really wanted to help Jess out. I don't know if he necessarily did, but I understood what he was doing with that. Plus, I think everyone kind of knew there was a battle back coming. I think he knew he was going to have a chance to come back. So good for him for setting that back up. I think he is a strong competitor, and he does have a chance to come back. So I did appreciate the last minute. I'm always one, don't go out of the house. Don't roll over and die. If you know you're going home, make whatever move you can. You don't know what's going to happen. So I always say, never say quit, never say die. And I was happy that he did that.
I had some mixed feelings about that. Maybe it's because I just do not like Cody as a person, and I say, and maybe rephrase that. Cody as a character on this show, I do not like. But because I just go back to as a Marine Corps brat, like there was no leadership quality to Cody.
Right.
There was no let me talk to my team. Let me
was
figure
his
out.
biggest downfall was not
it was
talking
that.
to his alliance.
So like when he goes around, he's spreading those things. I was like, okay, Cody. And then, but I will say, I do think it helped Jessica tonight.
Yeah.
In tonight's episode, particularly with Paul. But at the same time, the fact that he looked shocked. I'm like, don't this Jekyll Hyde thing that Cody has. I'm like, don't pretend to America that you're shocked. We all know,
but it's so entertaining.
When you're like that, and you're like,
it.
that's what we look, and you're like, you are a little nuts.
Yeah.
Either you're nuts, but you can't keep playing the game when you're talking to Julie Chen.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay, I do want to ask you guys about Christmas. So we've talked about Christmas last week, and there's a big debate about should she be able to come back to the house after her surgery. First of all, I just want to know why she was reading off of a typed, printed out letter that production clearly wrote for her. She's like, I've decided to. She's
just
like,
let her say a
I've
name.
decided to stay in the house. You're like, what? Is she on Xanax or something? What was she doing?
Right.
Production was probably like, for legal purposes.
Right, we have to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like the dramatic. She's like, dramatic pause. I've decided to stay in. I mean, you're like, this is so dumb.
And you even saw a glimpse of the card. It was a novel. It was not one sentence.
Large
it
print,
was
like Reader's Digest.
poor girl had to give her life story on that card. I was like, just let her say if she's staying or not. She's already very upset, but all right, guys.
Yeah.
But how many times did they show Christmas is foot breaking with that sound effect over that?
I'm like,
over
ew,
and
guys,
over, and I was
stop.
like, oh, okay.
It didn't sound like that.
And it
I
was
don't want to hear it.
Right.
Yeah, that was a lot. There was a lot going on.
It made me a little nauseous. But my big thing with Christmas is, so the Big Brother itself, the magic of it is staying locked in this house. And, I was a little iffy on how I felt about it. But when she made a vote from the hospital, that's when I was just like, this is kind of odd. I don't know how I feel about this. You're not in the game anymore, but you're voting.
Even though she probably was isolated and it wasn't a glorious experience, I still think the reason people pop off like a Josh or whatever, or a Mark like in tonight's episode, is because of that isolation and the conditions they put you through. So I thought they would have done something like, Christmas, we're gonna have to let you go if this is your situation. I think over on RuPaul's Drag Race, they had a girl that got broken ankle. They were like, you're gonna have to leave this season, you'll come back next season. That's what they should have done, in my opinion.
And it's not like Christmas brings anything of a different personality to the show that nobody else can bring. So I mean, I like Christmas a lot. I think that if she didn't, she was not in the situation she was in, she'd be
a beast.
the competitor. She'd be the Alex that everybody's like, oh, Alex is a pretty big beast,
I'm so sorry, but the chat's telling us something interesting. I don't know if it's true. The chat knows everything. The producers need Christmas to say they made a production of it. She gets to leave the house 3 times a week.
What?
What?
Monday, if
No
that's
way.
true.
Joseph, you better not be lying to me.
I mean, that's okay. If that's the case,
I can't handle that. Yeah.
But
If
is she leaving the house 3 times a week to go to physical therapy?
But even then, you're interacting with people. You're not in Big Brother anymore.
And when you're working, when you're casted on a show, there is a level of excitement when you're being carted around. And
well, you're sort of in. I mean, you're not. You're as you're in seclusion. You're not even if you do leave the house. All these former all the guests that have been evicted that are now going to play in the battle back have all been all been sequestered. It's not like they're going to back home and then coming back in.
And I know Tyler and a few other people in the chat room are saying that they think Christmas should leave, which I there are so many reality TV shows where somebody has to leave, not by their not because of something that they did, and the producers are always like, yeah, you'll get to come back. We'll just make sure you're on the next season.
Exactly.
So Christmas producers could have been
well,
like,
they
yeah,
can bring it back as a twist, on another season.
Right.
And why do you want the most physical? She's one of the physical badass girls
to not be able to be
not
physical.
to be that girl. Why would you even want that on this season?
Well, my big thing is with Christmas is she came back, she's injured, but why are they letting her, even have a chip in the veto? Because some people need that for their life. They need to play in that veto. And the fact that she gets pulled and they say, Christmas, I mean, you're still going to compete, but you have to sit out. Like, you
Right.
can't even win. I'm just like, if I was on the block and she got pulled and I didn't get a play to save my life, I would be livid.
Right.
I would be screaming.
Yeah, to have her in that POV.
It
this
just
week,
made
I
no
was
sense.
like, that's stupid. She gonna sit there.
Very. I think it's an
That's
unfortunate
stupid.
situation that she, and obviously it wasn't her fault. I think that's where the
Right.
problem lies. But at some point, you're going to have to say, I mean, she's not going to be able to compete in most of the, I mean, I feel like most of the first, these HOH competitions at least are very physical. They're not usually mental until toward the end. So it's not like she's going to be able to compete in any of these. I don't know. And then there's sympathy.
Do you guys think that from a, and I just posted to everybody, do you guys think that the house guests should just vote her off? Just to, because right now they're just using her as a vote.
Right.
But if they were truly like competitors, be like, you know, Christmas, we like you a lot. You'll probably come back on a show in a
Right.
couple of seasons. We just gotta level the playing field back out a little bit and not just use you as a vote. I think that would be the most, that for her, she'd probably be like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Right.
I'm not competing against you guys, so I got it.
If that happened, would you guys want an old castmate to come in? Because
Cameron.
but
I wrote that down actually. I was
Cameron-
like, I
Hashtag
saw
bring Cameron
Morgan-
back.
Cameron and I-
Morgan, I should have texted you like, Morgan, I saw Cameron.
Cameron and I share the same last name, so Cameron can come back anytime. His last name is
Really?
Heard. Yes,
Really?
I did not.
I just
we
want
might
to
be
see
related.
him, like,
I don't know.
just give him more than 2 hours. I just want to see what he's going to do.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about
But
this
how many
kid.
super fans can you have in the house, though? Ramses is over
But
there
are-
flailing his arms like SpongeBob, and then you've got Cameron out there being like, "I'm a super fan. I really want to be in there." And then you got
Right, but these super fans, I've yet to be impressed with them.
Jessica's
so maybe
apparently a super fan.
I don't believe that for 1 second.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so let's move on. So so we get to the POV competition. Alex ends up getting HOH after she made a deal. So it was Jason. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Sorry to interrupt. So Jason said that I read on the feeds, or not on the feeds. I didn't read anything.
Reddit.
But he said that if he won HOH this next week, he would target Christmas. He's like, she would be my target and I would knock her off. Now that was like yesterday, so obviously any 24 hours in the Big Brother house could immediately change that. But I thought that was also interesting. So maybe they are going to target her eventually. That's all I would say.
Which was interesting because Joseph in the chat room just reminded us, because when we first started the season, because we always forget that Megan was in the house.
There we go.
Yeah.
And
That
if-
makes
and-
sense
and-
of why
and- yeah,
they're
if-
pushing
and if
her to
Megan-
stay.
she's
Yeah.
so forgettable.
Megan, Christmas, they were going to,
nice.
Christmas was a
She
target
is
at the
nice.
beginning.
I know. I liked her.
Oh, is
Has
it-
she
is it
tweeted me and
Megan?
she wants to go to Vegas
I called
with
her.
me?
I called her
Megan.
Morgan on accident.
No, Megan.
Guys.
If
That's
Megan had
Morgan.
not walked
No,
out the door,
I know.
Christmas would have been like. I do agree with that. Christmas probably would have been gone.
Probably.
Right,
Because she was a
That's
target.
good
That she was a
point.
target.
That's a good point, Joseph. Anyway, so back to this. So it's Jason, Alex, and Elena all at the end of this competition, and they all are thinking that they can just stay up there forever. Ultimately, Jason says that he thinks that the only reason why he's staying up there is because Elena is up there, because he thinks that that side of the house, she would obviously target them, and so but then he eventually drops. Alex makes a deal with Elena, correct?
Right.
And tells her.
They basically say, Elena, if you drop, I'll keep whoever you want safe. And Elena drops. But what's funny
Right.
about that is
God.
then Elena goes, okay, I want 7 people safe.
Yeah.
You can't target them. I'm like, so who is
Yeah.
she going to put up, Elena? Like,
Yeah,
you
this
have
isn't
to
the
give her
Brady
some
Bunch.
wiggle room. Like,
I want you to keep
Like,
the
I
whole
would tell her
house.
to go to
Right.
hell. I would tell her to go right to
I
hell.
want you to keep everybody but Jessica.
Right.
That's basically what. Elena
exactly.
was
That's
saying.
what she said. I was like, so this was a pointless deal.
I might be wrong on this, but when I was watching it, it seemed like Elena made that deal, wasn't done speaking about it. Alex was still talking to her, and then Elena dropped, and then kind of used it as, oh, well, that's what I had said, because immediately after, Alex was like, we're still talking about it. So I felt like it was shitty for Alex, because she got put in a corner when they weren't done with the deal. Like, there's no way Alex would have said, yes, Elena, I'm going to save all of your squad, only taking away the 5 people that are even on my squad, which is really
Yeah.
tiny.
Right.
But Elena,
I'm just saying I saw that as gameplay in a really shitty way on
right.
Elena's end.
But it also didn't seem like Elena really cared that much, because she never brought it. Like, you never see her. So you never saw her go, why did you put Dom up when Dom was one of the
Right.
7 names?
Right.
Like, she didn't really care. At least that's how I look at it, because she was like, yeah, these are the 7 names I want to be.
Well,
and then as soon as Alex brought up Dom,
Right.
she was like,
Well, it's because of Paul. Like,
10-0.
Yeah, let's.
they're Paul's minions, and Paul all of a sudden hated Dom and wanted her up, and so of course
And
Elena's
why
like,
did Paul hate Dom? because of Cody. Cody planted that in his head.
But it made for
and
good
and
TV.
Paul was like, I don't know about this
the
girl.
one thing that he did.
Right.
Right?
But I want to hear, because you kind of have a theory. We were talking a little bit. You have a little bit of a theory about Paul, so I wanted to know how you felt, like how obvious it was that he would go right to Alex to get a super low key alliance or whatever.
Paul has his hands in everyone's cookie jar, and like the fact that no one realizes it or thinks it's an issue is beyond me. And here I was yesterday, I was thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, like I thought Jason was playing smart. It sounded like he wanted to kind of work with the outliers and do his own thing. And then today he was saying, well, like, Paul's really cool. Don't you think Paul's a good, like, he's awesome. I'm like, why does everyone think this? That's why I know you don't like Cody, but I kind of, for the battle back, I hope if Cody comes back, somebody target Paul, or he is going to go to the end.
Dominique tried to do that. Cody tried to do that.
But it's just people just love him.
What did Dominique try to do?
Tried to target Paul. Jason tried to
A little bit.
I just meant like in the sense like
Yeah.
she tried to plant the seeds without actually naming Paul, which I
Right.
thought was a little weird. I'm like, if you're gonna play with integrity, just name the person. If you're gonna
Yeah.
stand up and give us a whole speech about integrity,
her
and then you're
speeches.
gonna be like, and then in the side room you're gonna be like, but I don't want to say the name.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you the name.
Oh, I love
You have
this.
to,
I'm like,
it was like
Dominique.
a mental puzzle. That
I know, I was
everyone's
like,
trying to
I
figure
didn't
out.
understand anything you said.
I'm like, we know who you're talking
It
about.
was like just I
Dominique.
wanted to
Like
come
Shager.
on.
Yeah, so I don't know that it's a little weird because I feel like they're trying. They also are thinking that Paul's. I don't know. Maybe it's a chess player in me, where they're also thinking that Paul is a vote, and so they're trying to stake. Like they don't know who Paul's been talking to
Yeah.
because he's been talking to everybody. So they don't know who's been talking to who. So nobody can trust his brother except for Ramsey because he's never talking to anybody because he enters the room
Ramsey,
and
what
then
are you
leaves and then he
doing?
Yeah.
comes back in. But yeah,
Paul needs to chillax. Like he needs to go take one of Christmas's muscle relaxers and
Right,
just hang
and
out
just
in a
sit
room
for
somewhere.
1
You know,
second.
he's playing. I feel like, and maybe you guys can test. I mean, in all these other seasons, when people play too hard, too fast, they always burn out. So
Right.
I don't know if people would agree with me, but I think that he is still playing too hard. He's acting like he's, you know, he has 3 weeks of safety, and yes, that does create more of a target on your back, but he doesn't. He's not an imminent danger. He just
Right.
needs to like take a chill pill
Well,
and hang on.
May I have an opinion?
No.
No
Well, then I'll
opinions.
cut your mic.
Absolutely.
I'm kidding. No. Well, my thing with Paul is I didn't watch last season, so I don't have any starstruck quality about how cool he is. His jokes are
not that
funny.
cool.
Yeah, his jokes are like absolutely like completely not funny. So I'm not intrigued by him by any means. But I will say what he is doing with that kind of god awful thing they gave him with the 3 saves, you know, for 3 different weeks not being
It's
able
ridiculous.
to be nominated, which is ridiculous. What he is doing is a good job at taking people that normally do like each other and putting them against each other so they could destroy
Yeah.
themselves.
So Paul
I give him that
Planting
credit.
seeds
He is
really
creating
good.
chaos. Well, and it makes sense.
Paul is Donald Trump.
There you go.
Creating chaos amongst people that like each other.
Paul is smarter than Donald Trump a
Yes,
little bit.
but the creating
Paul for
chaos.
president.
Because Paul
is-
has like at least a wherewithal of who he who he is.
Right. Well, I see he is playing hard. I get what he's doing. I don't know if he's doing it in the right way. I mean, his 3 weeks of safety will be up soon, and I think his plan is just create as much chaos and drama and create all this attention not on him. So I get it, but I also still feel like some of it is so unnecessary. Like,
Right.
was the 5-hour fight with Dom really necessary?
Was him going after her and be like, I'm going to call him. No, I'm going to call a meeting. No, like that was unnecessary too.
But I
like,
think the only thing that's powerful with him, and again, I'm an avid not Paul fan at all, but I think the only thing powerful with that is there are still so many weak minds. You have Dominique finally understood what was happening. Cody seen what was happening from day one. You have a lot of weak minds. So what Paul did there was he said, oh, I'm not going to admit any guilt, which he should have, but of course he was going to go hard. And I think that those, you think a Raven is going to check Paul when Raven sees Paul like being that
God.
bossy?
Poor
Like it's a
Raven.
tactic. It's a Paul tactic. If
It is.
Raven's weak, Mark is weak. I mean, I could name the list of weak
Yeah.
people, and that's why he did it.
And
In my opinion.
3/4 of the house is weak.
and I think
Yeah.
that's the difference between, like, I think that's why more people like Paul than they like Cody right now this season, is because at least Paul tells us in the confessional what he's going to do, even
Yeah.
though he kind of like is like he kind of he has a Jekyll and Hyde moment sometimes, but at least up front he's probably like, yeah, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm sowing the seeds and I'm going to create some chaos, and that's what he says.
Yeah.
And then Cody in the confessional like doesn't want to say anything, and then
Crickets.
crickets, and then Dom's over there like, you know,
Dom never really
speaking
gives
Jesus,
you
take the
anything.
wheel.
Dom
That's all you get from her.
speaking
really.
in tongues in the bathroom.
Like Jocasta.
Guys,
And I was like, she's speaking in tongues on TV right now. There's a lot going on.
I did
It was
not.
intense.
I like had to do a double take, and I was like, "What's going on?"
That's how she heard Paul's name 3
You guys,
times.
I think I believe in God after that scene. Like when she was like, I've heard Paul's name 3 times. I mean, how?
I thought she was going to
And
say
then Paul
Paul's
was
face
sitting-
came in.
Yeah.
But then
came
I
in the
like how they
mirror.
add like lightning
there's a
and
God,
all
right,
this
she knew
effects. I was
that.
like, "Oh, did he like magically appear there?" Like, okay, CBS
Right.
making this a show.
yeah.
Real quick, the chat's saying that there was maybe an issue that was exposed on TMZ that, and I'm going to ask the chat. I know our amazing, one of our co-hosts, Timothy's on the chat too. I think
good.
what they were saying was that Paul initially didn't do the snake uniform.
Yes,
He
this is what I heard too.
Oh, tell
There was a lot of controversy with this.
Yes. So I maybe because maybe you have a better knowledge of it. I just read an article about
I
it.
read it. I watched it. It's according to it, he wanted to dress like a snake in order to, you know, kind of poke fun at Dom because she called him a
Right.
snake. And he was going around. He had a black face mask he was going to put on, and he at some point said blackface.
Yeah.
Which, Paul, my thing is, Paul, you've been on the show before. You know cameras are rolling 24/7. You know what you can and can't say. That's not something you say on TV. So
How can you be that stupid? I mean,
Exactly.
honestly, like there's nothing there. I mean, that's completely inexcusable.
exactly.
What's interesting about that situation is I didn't watch the live feed, so I don't know what that was like. But there seemed to be a pattern with Paul, if that's the case, and I'm sure everybody in the chat room knows more than I do about what happened. But do you remember when in the first episode when Jessica talked about the whole like the Alex
Yeah.
and then the pay thing, and then
Yeah.
Paul was the one that went and told,
Right, yeah.
but then didn't tell the whole story,
Yeah.
and like that was a whole like racial thing that he didn't like tell the truth on.
I just
and
don't
you're
think
like, what?
Paul thinks before he speaks,
Right.
which makes absolutely no sense to me because you are being filmed 24/7 and you signed up knowing that. So,
And you've been on the show before.
and you've been
like
on
you
the
said.
show before, and he knows what, like, Big Brother, like, people have gotten fired from being on Big Brother.
Yeah.
A lot of things have happened, like, season 16 or 15 was
Yeah,
when
that was
all
bad.
that happened. Like, he knows. So I'm just like, to me, I had to just shake my head and just be like, really? Like, and then, but then apparently his family came out with this statement that they, you know, did their...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, his family came out with a statement, and they have apparently been getting, like, death threats, and, like, it's gotten
God.
serious, which, understandable, it's a very insensitive thing to say, but they ended up coming out with a statement that I did read, and it's interesting how...
I just think
It's-
someone who has been on the show should know better, and that it shouldn't. I mean,
It just should have known.
Yeah.
Well, my thing was, it's almost like, Paul, you just don't do that. Like, that was him blatantly just kind of being a bully. Like, she was like, what was the point of that? She called you a snake. Everyone in there lies. They call you worse names than a snake. To me, it's just Paul needing more attention.
I wonder if it's like one of those reality TV moments. We've seen it year and year and year again on all these shows. Like when you're cast as a certain thing and you have a really great first season, you're just expected to just go. So I feel like the producers are egging him on. He
Yeah.
knows he has
Oh,
to make
yeah.
a splash. I mean, the fact that he called himself the Puppet Master, excuse me, you were not Dr. Will Kirby. Don't do that.
Right.
You were, and like, you're the Puppet Master because CBS gave you 3 free episodes? Are you crazy, man? Like, I can't stand this man. He's just horrible to me.
I'm very ready for the moment when Paul goes home. I don't know if it'll come anytime soon,
Right.
but I hope and pray that people start playing this game and realize he's got to go. Like, he had his 3 weeks of safety. He had it nice and easy. He already won HOH and POV. Like, if somebody doesn't get rid of him soon, we'll see a final 2 with Paul.
Followed
sitting
by
at the
that,
end.
followed by the entire house giving him an HOH to take out Cody because they were all
that was
scared.
that was
Oh, I was so
insane.
hurting.
That was so insane. What I mean,
But
what are these people
but
doing?
at the time, it was like every viewer wanted Cody to go home.
Yeah.
So it
Right.
was like, yeah, just I'll give you the tickets
Yeah.
to the TV. Just everybody give him tickets. So I think that these early things on, and like I said, I'm new to this show, but Survivor is somewhat similar in the sense that we always know that these strong players right out the gate. We already know the strong players out the gate, but they don't always end up winning. At least in Survivor, they don't.
Yeah, no.
So Paul might be strong right now. Cody might be strong right now. Alex might be strong right now. But a Ramses might come
Guys,
through.
Matt might win. He'll bring cereal to the finale.
Matt and Raven remind me of Clay and Shelley, except less tan and less dumb. And they're just the worst.
Matt and
they're
Raven,
so bland. They're like,
Just what have they done for this game? Like, name one thing you have done.
yeah.
Have they even
That's what I'm saying.
talked
Something
about
down.
the game?
Hang on, I wrote something down that Raven said. Raven said that Jess is on her radar, and I was like, when have you been playing this game?
When did you realize you were in Big Brother?
Yeah, what's it? Do you know what a radar is?
But again, it might be one of those things where they're being edited out till for later. Like
Right.
we haven't been seeing it, and they've been playing this game all along, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, but what about
would be
their
very
commentary though? Their confessional.
But we haven't
if
seen
Matt says that he wants to make it to jury one more time, I'm gonna like saw off my ears.
No, there was a conversation that I was reading about between him and Raven in the hammock today, and I think they were literally just counting down the days until jury. They're like, well, we can get rid of 2 more people, and then it's jury, and then we're good. And I'm like, what? Why did you sign up to be on this show?
I have a serious issue with that. I tweeted. We were tweeting back and forth because it's like maddening.
It's so upsetting because so many people would kill to be in that spot. And guys, you have a chance to get $500,000 and you're fine with just being kicked out. Like, no, I'd be fighting tooth and nail to get to that end. So
Well, and you said, like, for example, you were say about your season because they, didn't have jury.
right, so we didn't have a jury on OTT, so it was such a different experience because when you got kicked out, you went home. Like, there was no more stipend, there's no party and jury, there's no free alcohol. Like, you went home, so it's a much different experience because everyone was constantly playing the game. You were constantly strategizing. No one ever stopped talking about the game. So it was I feel like a very different experience. And
It
I
is
wasn't
great
in the
when
show
you could have
notes.
people play the game. Even one of our chat members was saying, yeah, those deals with HOHs, I mean, it's cool every blue moon, but like, you got to play. Like, I mean, this is what we want with Big Brother. We want players, honestly.
right.
Yeah. Well, and this is a question I have for you just because you've been in the house, but do you think it's more of like a team sport or an individual sport, or is it both, or is there any sort of, I've always wanted to know that.
I mean, it's definitely a team up until a certain point. I think once you get when you see the finish line, that's when you're like every man for himself. But shoot, up until the double eviction, it is very much a team. You need your solid group. But then again, don't have an alliance of 7 people. That's not a good idea. Like, I had 4 people, and that was great, and we had each other's backs, and that works. And I don't know, maybe name your alliance, too. Like, that's the most frustrating thing. I'm like, if somebody doesn't name one of these alliances and actually call themselves an alliance, I'm going to scream. I'm like, this isn't Big Brother until you have an alliance name. So,
and I've never really seen, like I said, I'm only speaking from Survivor. Like, I've never really seen people, alliances break up so fast.
right.
Yeah.
And come back together or think they're together, but then they're not together. And you're like, so were you really an alliance in the first place? If you're going to be an alliance, be an alliance.
Right.
Be a block,
Right.
at least 3 or 4 episodes in, so that we can see. But to Jillian's point, like, Jillian was blindsided.
Right.
Dominique was blindsided. Cameron, unfortunately, didn't have that much of a... he was only, he
Cameron
didn't
was
have
there
a-
an
he didn't
hour.
have an
He didn't
alliance.
know.
And Cody had an alliance, but he broke the alliance. He broke the trust by not kind of telling somebody, and then he tried to pretend like he told somebody, and I'm like, no, you didn't. Either you told somebody, or you don't, or we didn't see that on TV. So I've never seen people play a game that way when you're with your team, at least for the first 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's keep going. So Alex nominates Dom and Jess, obviously. I mean, Dom was kind of a surprise because she thought that she had an alliance with Elena, she thought Elena had tried to protect her. And then Jason wins the POV. So maybe we should talk about, like, what did you guys think of the nominations and then POV?
So, with the nominations, here comes Jason, and I was so excited because I felt like Jason finally had, a good point. He was making what I thought was a good game move. He was like, don't put Jess up. She's a number with us. She would vote with us. We could get, a showman's out, something like that. And instead, Alex was like, no, we're just going to go with the rest of the house. Like, let's just put Jess up and not make them mad. And here I am, like, taking back everything I said about Alex, and I'm just like, let's make some big game moves. Like, let's target the showmances, target the other side of the house. Jess is a number. She's by herself.
Right.
Why would you put her up when she literally has no one else to work with but you guys? To me, I was just like, okay. Like, it was upsetting for me to hear Alex say that, but I was happy that I at least saw that Jason seems to have a good head on his shoulders. Right. I think.
Do you think Dom was the right move, or like, do you think Dom or Jess? From that side,
I think that Jess was the right move because of the climate of the house at the time. So I think that Alex was trying to say, I'm not going to do what Paul did and try to play some pawns up there. I'm not really going to do what Cody did. I'm going to, I've got to keep some peace in the house. So Jessica is the right choice. But I do think that because the pawn thing is really confusing to me. Like, I don't like that. Just put up who you're going to put up and let the chips fall where they may. Like, that's stupid to me. But I think if I was HOH, I'd be like, no, you got to go. Especially when you have to explain why you're putting somebody out there. Because then you're basically lying. And then with Dominique, you're like, yeah, Alex had been talking this game about showmances the whole time. And so she probably should have put somebody up there that made a conflict between one person and somebody else. Dominique was not a conflict. Dominique was a Paul choice. Right. And, I'm not a huge fan of showmances in a house like this because it's stupid. It does not lend the gameplay on that. That does not help the gameplay out any. And it certainly didn't help Cody out. And then even when he sat on that show today and was like, I'm gonna wait till Jess. I'm gonna listen to Jess and do whatever Jess says. And you're like, what kind of game are you playing?
Well, at this point, if I was Jess, I'd be like, no, I'm not working with you at all.
Well, no, I mean, come on, though. What do you're everyone hates Cody in the house. Who else would he want to speak with? I mean, I understand what you're saying, Drexel, but at the same time, like, but you go back into the house, you go play a game. You're playing a game. You're not playing a showmance. This is not Love Connection.
It's not The Bachelor.
This is not The Bachelor. You go play the game. You play chess. I'm not sitting there with my king and queen on my chessboard being like, you guys love each other. Let's go. Like, I'm not playing that game. You go in the house and you play the game. Yes.
No, I was just pointing because Tyler says that pawns, or no, he said earlier, he said pawns, or some showmance is last. And I was like, no. And he said Rachel and Brendan, but okay, maybe one out of like 19.
One
exception.
exception.
And Jeff and Jordan. Yeah, I saw that.
And Jeff and Jordan.
Yeah,
okay, and I guess they all have kids now.
And Tyler, I know Tyler said that pawns are super important. Like, I understand that pawns are important to certain gameplay, but I think that in a situation that Alex was put in, you couldn't put a pawn up. No. Like, in certain situations, you couldn't. Maybe early on in the game, you could. First and second eliminations, maybe. But, like, later on down the road, like, you really just can't. You can't trust. No. You cannot trust anybody enough because everybody's going to be playing individual games later on to put a pawn up because you don't know who you're going to. You could have one conversation. I could have a conversation with you, and then you could easily go back and change that. And
we talked about. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we talked about last week. Never go up as a pawn. Like, that's never a good idea.
Never volunteer. Which actually, I will say, as much as I think Mark is not the brightest bulb, he actually got upset about being put up as a pawn. So I was like, finally, he has like a brain. Like, he showed that he does get this game. So at least we saw that from Mark, that he didn't want to be put up as a pawn.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Mark,
oh my gosh.
Do you remember? I just felt like Sasha Velour should have come in and done So Emotional over Mark. Every time Mark comes on the screen, Sasha Velour from RuPaul's Drag Race should have just done So Emotional, because every time Mark comes on the screen, he's crying. Every time Josh comes on the screen, he's boohooing about something. And so I'm like, everybody calm down. And then we had the fight today, and I was like, you had So Emotional against each So Emotional, and it was a little much today.
I was thinking, I was like, they're acting like the biggest girls in the house, but then I was like, that's offensive to women. Like, they don't even, like, it's not.
We don't act like that.
No, it's like they're like children.
Well, my thing was, like, okay, he threw it on him, and okay, that happened. I'm sure it burned your eyes.
Explain.
Okay, so they're playing a pool game, Josh and Mark, and they make a bet. Oh, if you lose, you have to drink pickle juice and hot sauce, which, wow, I forgot we were in middle school, guys. But anyways, they make the bet. It's like, all right, this is weird. And then apparently Josh, so what, I don't get pool, but he double tapped the ball. And apparently,
he definitely
guys, I don't get
scratched
pool.
it.
What? So he, I guess, lost, but he claimed he won. So they get in this massive argument. He says he wins, you know, typical Josh going on his tangent. And then Mark was like, oh, so you're saying you won. He's like, yeah, I won, like fair and square. And Mark randomly throws a mixture of hot sauce and pickle juice into Josh's face. And if y'all haven't seen the GIF, whatever, of that, it will go down in Big Brother history because it is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh my God,
of his face?
It's literally him throwing it, Josh like crying, and then Mark being like, what? It's so funny. But then it leads to, and then of course Josh pours like ketchup and mustard on him, and then I was like, all right guys, it's gonna end. Like, you got your childish, like,
Mark wouldn't to try to hug him.
Right, and I was like, oh, it's over. Like,
Wait,
we got over it.
was this before he started screaming, or is this out?
Josh was screaming the whole time.
Like, the whole time.
But Mark started screaming.
And then Mark got mad.
Yeah.
And then he was like, all right, bro, like, let's make up. And then Josh goes on a Josh tangent.
Which I'm wondering if that is something that we have not seen in the house. Maybe they had a conflict before and it just kind of bubbled up.
Maybe.
Because, like, people, like, I wrote down, Josh is Josh is a loose cannon. And why does Josh go from 0 to 100 so fast?
Every episode, 0 to 100.
He's like a dumpster fire.
And why didn't Mark go lay on Christmas's shoulder again? I just want Mark to go lay on everybody's shoulder in the house and cry. But
he probably will. So
he probably was going to, but then
waiting.
Josh was all in his face. But like, it was just a little weird. Like, it just all happened so fast. And then with Josh coming out with all of this stuff that he said, and I was like, Josh, what are you doing? Because then that puts a target on. Like, if I was in the house, Josh would have to be one of the next people to go.
Yeah.
I think at this point he is on a lot of people's radars for the next person to go. What will be interesting though is Josh made a comment. He's, I feel like, still heated up and probably yelling at this very moment about this. But he says if he gets HOH, he is going to make Mark and Matt's life living hell. So for the sheer entertainment of it, because I would like to see this.
Oh, God.
I would think it would be very interesting if Josh got the next HOH.
Him
because
being HOH.
can you imagine the power, like, just what he would do with that? Like, I'm sure he would wear, like, a crown with, like, a staff and...
and a cape.
and
he would be like, oh, it's my HOH. You can't tell me what to do. It's my HOH. You get out of here. Get out of my face.
You meatball?
Yeah, relax. Like, play it cool. But see, I think he's one of those people that is going to get far because he is so out there. Like, he's so, you know, boisterous and insane that everybody knows where he is.
Right.
There's other people that are under the radar that they'll try to get out. They're like, oh, Josh the target. There's Josh the target this week. And then they'll get out, you know, whoever.
Right. I think
if you're up against him, though, I think it's such a great tactic you could always use with him. Once he started crying because Jess checked him and then later Cody checked him or whatever, those moments where his masculinity got compromised so early in the game more than 6 times, I think, like, let's say if I was on the block against him, I know that I would go after his manhood. I would probably never do this to another man just because I don't want to do that type of thing, but this is a way to get him to jump out of pocket and dig his own grave.
Yeah.
And I talked about this with people long before, like, early on in the show, because I was like we're going through the characters and kind of talking about their different personalities, and I remember saying to myself, now, you know, I was like, I think Josh as a not as a character on the show, but as a person is going, you know, because at first you were like, oh, Josh is talking about these girls and like how he likes girls, and then I'm like, Josh, I feel like might be going through other conflicting mental things on the show.
For sure.
And so every time that his masculinity gets checked, he does have those outbursts where it wasn't necessarily about him being a, you know, he did double tap that pool ball. Like, we all saw that. And he probably knew that. But it was not about that. It was the fact that
he can't
Mark,
lose.
it was the fact that Mark, he kept talking about Mark questioning him as a man. I'm as a man.
Well, then he went into that giant tirade about, you know, then he started like spitting game all over the place.
Right.
And it was so like inappropriate.
It's as if he's like kind of getting too far aware of the, you know, the cameras and how it's going to
Right.
be aired and how he's going to look. And like Drexel says, I didn't want to really insinuate that, but I do feel he's going through other things that, you know, it's his manhood. Because again, I don't need you to be the best player. I don't need you as a man to be the most masculine man to do good in this show, or even as a person. do what works for you. But I think that's something that's an issue to him.
I mean, and I will say, being in the house, you question everything about yourself. So, I mean, I could see that because
Sure.
you start wondering a lot of things being
Mental
in that
break.
house. So,
That's funny.
it is very mental. So, I mean, I feel you, Josh. I don't know what you're thinking, but that house is crazy.
Timothy Rodriguez, one of our co-hosts,
Oh.
he said it. He's
You know, I read
All right.
an article that also made this statement as well, and interesting.
And that's why, like me, also in the community as well, I'm not the type that wants to say if you're not overly masculine, that's going to dictate you being gay. But
Yeah.
I will say how Drexel was speaking. My thoughts are you can sort of tell when somebody's dealing with that issue and compromise.
And it might not necessarily
I've
be
been
that
there,
he's
you
gay.
I mean, I'm not masculine at all, and I'm straight, so
See?
Neither.
at least I think so. Hang on, what day is it?
But yeah, I won't necessarily say that, like, yeah, Josh is definitely gay. I just think that there's a lot of questions that he's trying to get through right now, and so it is unfortunate that it's happening on air for people like, you know, we live in Los Angeles bubble where there are a lot of gays all around, and we know who, you know, there's a lot of people in the closet and questioning a lot of that stuff. So like, and those are conflicting people, and we can see it play out in front of us, and we see this playing out on television, and you're like, we see that every day.
Yeah.
And that's an unfortunate situation for a player who's not only having to think about gameplay,
Right.
but have to think about how he's being portrayed on the thing. So yeah, I understand these little outbursts. I just don't think they're helping him, because Dominique had an outburst, and we see what happened to her.
Yeah, I that's a really good point. But speaking of Dominique, we talked about this a little bit. But she called Paul out and figured out that she called him a snake, and then now I think the tide is a little bit turning. And then we have the POV competition. Jason ends up winning the competition, as we said, and he ends up not using the power veto on. And actually, Jess was pissed because she thought that she picked Jason, so maybe she thought maybe he would throw her a bone. I mean, how do you guys think Jess is doing? She's actually
guys, she got the Den of Temptation.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Regardless
the
of how
helping
she's doing,
hand.
she's doing real good now, because that is huge.
Yeah, so she can stop any eviction for the next 3 or 4 evictions. She can stop any eviction from happening.
Except
so
as
proud
long
of
as she doesn't use it. If she uses it,
Right,
Yeah,
then it's done.
Right.
I have so here's the thing. America picked the first 2 people that seem to be likable enough. Paul, and then Christmas. Like those America votes made sense.
Right.
For 2 kind of popular people and then 1 not popular people, you're like, I don't know if America actually chose.
But let's look at their social media following.
But also, America, I will say, after experience, America will always vote for the underdog. Anytime a person's alone, if they think, you know, like, I think
beloved, maybe.
right,
Paul.
or like she was alone in this.
And
Like, no one would talk to her. So I guess I can kind of see where that sympathy would go for Jess. Or, you know, who knows? Maybe people think Cody's coming back and they'd like to see, you know,
the
lovers reunited.
I sort of thought the other thing. Paul was whatever. Like, of course, they want him to be a star of the show. With Christmas, you were saying you thought she was popular, and that's why she got it. I thought that was overly produced. Now, Jessica getting it made me excited, because I was one of the few people, there's not many of us, who loved Cody and Jessica. And I give her so much credit for going through what she went through. You know what I mean? So for her to finally get something... No.
She's acting like he died, and he died years ago. So
Guys, they've known each other for 2 weeks. I'd like to point that out.
Right. Like, they're jumping on each other like they were married, like they were newlyweds, and they were on their honeymoon.
Cody's like, I love you.
Also,
I love you,
LOL
Jessica.
that they didn't know that
I don't know what Jessica's gonna. I don't know what Jessica's gonna do. I don't care about any of it. Like,
Oh my gosh! Wait, did you hear whenever he walked out that he asked her to be his girlfriend officially? Guys,
oh my God!
we've got a Big
Whatever.
Brother
It's like a
wedding
match
coming.
made in Big
But
Brother
here's the
heaven.
thing: Jessica is not a good player. Cody is not a good player.
Do you think Jessica's a super fan, like they say?
I think that Jessica's a super fan of Jessica, so I don't think that she's a super fan of the show. She might very well be, but it does not seem like she is, because, again, if you're a super fan of the show, you know how to game play. You know how to make, like, for her to be like, oh, like tonight's eviction being 10-0, like to being unanimous.
Yeah,
was
Dominique.
Really,
You just say just
right, with Dominique, like, was really surprising to me, because I would think that some people, and this is just me, I would have looked at Jessica going around and on her apology tour as only Jessica going around on an apology tour and not meaning any of that. And I would have been like, you know what, Jessica, I see what you're trying to do, and you're just trying. Who knows what you're going to do after this vote if we don't vote you out? So I'm just going to vote you out anyway.
Right.
Like for some of these people who've been wanting Jessica out the whole time, some of those votes were crazy to me, and I was like, how did that person not vote for Jessica?
Well, the whole debate from the episode, last night's episode was Mark going to vote to keep her evict Dominique?
But I also think that, you know, if you are watching from an editing standpoint too, you look and you go, why didn't Jessica use her halting hex?
Yeah.
She must have known something that we didn't know going into this eviction, that that she would have the numbers in her favor. Because it's like when people have an idol on Survivor and they don't play it, and you're like, why don't you play it? But then you're like, oh, that was smart. You know something we don't know.
There is something, and what's funny is I was catching up on live feeds before today, and Paul was campaigning today to flip everyone to vote Jessica. So what happened? Because, you know, everyone listens to Paul in this house.
Do you think it's just paranoia?
That's what I'm so confused.
Or
I don't
he's just
know.
planning it. Sorry.
I guess didn't read far enough, but they were trying to flip the house, and then all of a sudden it was unanimous. So something happened with that. I don't know what. Maybe we'll find out in the
But
weeks to
Paul
come.
better not act like he was surprised that Dom went home.
No.
Oh, no, Paul
nobody.
knew that.
No,
that
he
was
orchestrated the
Paul's
whole
doing.
thing.
But did you at the end when she was walking out, and Julie pointed that out, that he said something about philosophy or whatever, but he's already trying to make amends in case she. I mean, he is very good at this game. He's already knowing that if he's trying to put it on her good side in case she comes back or in case she does something. But I actually have one other question for you, like. Julie, so when Cody got evicted, didn't Julie ask him what he would do, and didn't he say that he would align with Paul?
Yes.
That's what I was wondering. So if he did come back in, I mean, I don't know. I guess we can talk. I mean, that's just another point.
If he goes back in the house.
Which is tomorrow, right?
Yes,
Battle back.
Battle back. But so and then it'll be Cameron, Jillian, Cody, and Dom.
Well, what's going to be interesting with this, did anyone note that Julie kind of hinted that it's going to be a different type of battle back?
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to be like any others. And then I had a theory. So it's going to be different. And I was reading up on this. And some people are saying that maybe they'll bring Victor back. So he's the king of battle back. And what if
serious?
Like the king of battle back was also thrown in the mix and it was 5. Very far-fetched, but
so wait,
it
so
would be
then
interesting.
so there would be 5 people competing, and then Victor could get into the house?
I think that's what people were theorizing, or it would be like a bracket type thing where it'd be like 2 would compete, 1 would move on, 2, and then 1, and then it'd be like.
Well, that's what I thought that what they did last year, maybe.
I wrote down what would be interesting. Like, I don't want another person. I mean, I don't want another person to come back in the house. Like not like that's not a point
like
before.
a vet.
Like a vet to come back in the house.
no.
Like, that's crazy to me.
No.
I'm over the vets.
But if the curse over the whole house is something crazy, what if 2 people have to be evicted and then 2 people go into the house?
That's interesting.
And so they just make the switch, and so it really would have to throw off that game. So then you bring somebody like Dominique and Cody back into this game, and now
Surprise,
now Paul and somebody else are out, and you're like, oh, that really shook up the rest of the game.
But the only flaw in that is the fact that we won't find out what the curse is until next Thursday with Julie.
Right.
So the battle back will happen, and then they'll crown the HOH, and then all of that will happen, and then we'll find out what the curse is on Thursday.
Interesting.
So, I don't know, but that's like if they're not doing that, they should.
CBS, change your plan right
You need to
now.
really right.
Why don't we? I have some questions, but why don't we go into the predictions of the next episode?
Predictions.
What do you guys think is going to happen?
I think.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Whew. That was a
Guys.
lot. First, let's say
It was like the Big Brother.
I
like
know.
when he's
I thought I was
the
like,
den
guys, are we in the den of
temptation.
temptation? Like, what is this?
By the way, that voice is really creepy, and it's
I
really stupid.
I really don't like it.
It's
I'm like,
stupid
just
and it's
say it
creepy at the
normally.
same
Just say it in the Big Brother voice.
Right.
Like, this
Like,
irritates me.
This is too much. Okay, well, first let's start. Who do you think is going to win the battle back?
Who do you think or who do you want?
Well,
That's
both.
the thing.
Okay, I think Cody's gonna win. I want Cameron to win just because I'm on the Cameron train. I just want to see him play because we haven't got to see him play. We know how Cody plays. Jillian doesn't do anything, and I really didn't see much of Dom either. So I want Cameron, but I think Cody will win.
I want, excuse me, I want Dominique, and no, I'm sorry. I think Dominique, and I would like Cameron to come back.
Oh, you didn't
Bring
even
Cameron
say
back.
Cody.
Cody.
Is anyone
Why
surprised?
would I want Cody back in the house?
I think you secretly
deep
do.
down
I
you
do
do.
not. I have a people, super arrogant people like that, like bother me like
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're not. Like I said, if Cody was a good player, yes, I'd want Cody to come back.
Yeah.
But even post eviction, and then tonight's conversation, I'm like, Cody, you
Hasn't changed.
What conversation?
Right. And you're like, and you're pretending like you were shocked that Dom was sitting next to you when you're the one who said Dom's name in the first
Yeah,
place.
yeah, exactly. That's so crazy. I think Cody will probably come back. I would like to see. I mean, just to throw it out there, Jillian or Megan. Megan, why don't you come? Why doesn't Megan come back?
Megan's
if
already at her
Megan
day
comes
job.
What is Megan
Right?
doing?
What if she just walks in and she's like, guys,
Yeah.
surprise. It was all a joke.
Yeah.
Or
I'm just kidding.
I'm here.
what if Morgan goes in?
Guys,
Oh.
I didn't tell y'all I'm going to the studio
Yes, this is
tomorrow,
her
and
last
I'm
episode.
battling
Yeah,
back.
battling
with
back.
us.
And whoever
Oh, you
gets
can
kicked
host
out
a
of the house is
competition.
taking my spot
Taking
in
a
this
spot on the
panel. Surprise.
Hopefully it's
That
not.
would be insane.
It's Cody.
Oh God.
That would be, maybe it's Julie Chen. Okay, so who do you guys think is going to win at HOH? Or who do you want to
Who
win?
do I want? I
Yeah.
want Josh,
You want Josh.
just for the drama.
That
I
would
wouldn't
be.
mind seeing Jason.
I would like to see Jason as well because I think when he gets power, he will do something smart with targeting the showmances or the
I'm
other
also
side of the
really
house.
annoyed by these heavy opinions by these people who haven't played the game at all, like the Mads and the Ravens. I'm a little like, I don't like that. You haven't played, but you're real cocky. That's an issue.
But
for
at the
me.
same
They
time,
think they're
but
untouchable.
at the same time,
Which
the
makes no sense.
people who know this game aren't playing the game either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I don't agree with that piece of it, because I'm like, yeah, if you watch the show, you'd play a better game. You would know how to play a better game, and you're not doing that. So the people who are trying to step up, let them step up and do that. I want Ramses to win HOH
That would be
because I
That'd be
think that
good.
at a certain point in a game, somebody else who has not been on the radar, like a Ramses or a Raven or somebody that we haven't had a chance to see much of yet, can totally change the dynamic of a game.
Right.
And I think that they need an opportunity to do that. So I do think that, you know, Ramses almost had a shot in the POV challenge. So we kind of saw that he has an opportunity to win challenges. He just needs the right challenge to win.
Right.
Raven has her own medical story, so I don't know exactly when that's gonna kind of play into the actual mainstream main show. That's not playing on the live feeds, but yeah, I need one of them to win HOH.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
I'm just going to throw that out there and say Christmas.
How's she gonna win HOH?
Guys, it's a physical one, but she's going to do it all in one leg.
Right.
Yeah. She's
It's a
she's
hopscotch
just
HOH.
It's a jumping jack HOH.
She's going to do it.
All right. Well, so what if you guys were in the house? Like, who would you align with? Who would you be like aligning with? I really would like specifically like what? How would you?
Well, I am anti-showmance, so clearly I would be targeting the showmances, and I don't understand why you have such a good group of outliers. Like, Jason is proving to be a strong competitor. Alex is a strong competitor. You have Jessica, who's alone. Like, I would gather all these quote-unquote misfits and band together and get out the showmances, because if you don't target them now, they're going to buddy up, and they're always going to be votes together.
Who's more important to get out, Paul or the showmances?
Paul, because Paul's the puppet master, like
Okay.
you said. Well, and I don't think the showmances are smart enough to do anything on their own without Paul. So I think once we get Paul out is then when we can start breaking them up, and then all of the outliers would have a great chance in this game. So that's where I would be sitting, hopefully.
Right.
It depends on what point in the game it is. I
Right.
think that
now.
right now, I would probably align with like Kevin.
I love Kevin.
Yeah.
Who's like nobody really pays attention to like he's not on anybody's radar at all. And then kind of like I have my little cheat sheet here with everybody's faces just so that I can kind of be like, oh yeah, I'd probably align with that person. Yeah, definitely Kevin. I think Matt might be an alliance. I would try to mix it up a little bit.
Okay.
And just try to like create a team, because I think that at the beginning, if you're a super strong personality, and I'm a super strong personality, like I don't want a bunch of alphas with me, and that was Cody. I think that was part of Cody's mistake. But at the same time, like Paul made a calculated move by banding the misfits together, but I also don't want a bunch of misfits together. So I think you always need a mix of the teams later on in gameplay. So right now, I would kind of find who that is, and not necessarily. So yeah, at the beginning, I'd probably do what Paul did and was like, let me get the people who I could probably get on my side.
Okay. So one name. You can only do one word. Who's gonna win Big Brother 19? One name. Oh, that's it. You can't.
We can say that every week.
Just say one name. That's it. We have to wrap up. We have to hurry. So just one name. I'm gonna say Kevin.
Kevin.
Oh.
It's all yours. Kevin or Matt? I don't know why Matt's going to sneak to the end.
I feel like I'll say Kevin right now.
Ronnie?
Who?
I'd like to see Alex win.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, you guys, that's all for us this week. I'm Bryce McLeay. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Bryce Advice.
And I am Morgan Willett. You can find me at Twitter at Morgan_Willett.
And I'm Drexel Heard, and you can find me at Drexel Heard. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.